Chapter 98 to 102. Bookmaker. This ability is quite problematic, Broly said, examining his impaled chest while Kamigawa, Najimi, Zenikichi, Medaka and Shiranui watched with relief as Broly's hair turned white. Ha, has it worked? Zenikichi and Shiranui exclaimed with astonishment and hope, especially Shiranui, who was beginning to think that she would end up merged with Broly's shoulder. Please beat him and unhook me from here. Why were they all so hopeful to see that the screw was stuck in Broly successfully and that his hair turned white? It was due to Kamigawa's original minus ability, Bookmaker. The terrible debuff skill of the good loser, the one who calls himself the weakest person in the whole world, a skill that lowers in body, spirit, technique, intelligence and talent, to match the level of Kamigawa to every person who has been stabbed by his special screw, preventing him from even performing any plus skills like Medaka's, the end. And among the side effects of this fearsome ability is leaving the heart of the affected people on the floor, and as Broly was showing, turns the hair white. How could they not be hopeful to see Broly's white hair? It was the obvious symptom that Kamigawa's ability had been successful and that Broly's superhuman physical and arcane abilities had been blocked. This was his only chance, and the first step towards victory. And so they couldn't waste another second. Altered God Mode. As far as Medaka, the strongest human on the planet, took action, taking all its capabilities beyond the limit with the most powerful transformation/fighting mode she knows so far. A combat mode in which her physical strength and healing rate both increase drastically, allowing her to deal out devastating attacks while shrugging off horrific injuries. A mode in which Medaka is able to control everything about herself, the best power and efficiency. Palm. And with that power-up he launched at full speed to the weakened Broly, a speed that far exceeds the hypersonic one, destroying the ground with its acceleration. But Medaka wasn't the only one who had begun her attack. Kamigawa, who hadn't moved from Broly's side after he used the Bookmaker, and that a few moments before Medaka began his attack, he had already manifested 2 attack screws and was preparing to use them in Broly, cutting off any escape route. The screws of Kamigawa and Medaka Super Saiyan were about to collide with Broly, but... Shambles. The position of Najimi and Broly was exchanged instantly, surprising the 5 students. A skill of exchanging positions? Najimi thought as she prepared to block Medaka and Kamigawa's attacks with some of her skills without losing sight of Broly. Oops, what is Najimi doing here? Oh. Was he able to use a skill despite being affected by my Bookmaker? Kamigawa thought, who couldn't stop his attack at this point, and on the other hand he thought that even if he struck Najimi with his screws nothing would happen to her, so he didn't feel guilty about it. Shit, he has been exchanged for Najimi. Which means that Bookmaker hasn't worked at all and that Zenikichi, who was next to Najimi, is in danger now, Medaka thought while trying to change his direction at full speed. Damn. He can still use skills, others have failed and he hasn't released Shiranui. I have to do something, Zenikichi thought as he prepared to attack Broly with a flying kick aimed at his neck. Although objectively he was the weakest in that room, he wasn't even the most cowardly. I'm still stuck to his man despite this teleportation. Shiranui thought, depressed and trying to tear Broly's hair out, the only way I could contribute while worrying about Zenikichi. Interesting, because several arcs you removed your presence I wasn't able to detect you completely, Kamigawa. I suppose Ihiko was able to detect you for his extensive combat experience of 5,000 years. I recognize that I need more serious fights, Broly said as he stopped with his tail the kick of Zenikichi and hung him on the leg, as if he had stepped on a hanging trap in a forest. Bomb! Get away from me, Zenikichi! Medaka shouted with fury and despair as she miraculously changed direction from her onslaught to head towards Broly. Medaka! The 2 captives by Broly, Zenikichi and Shiranui shouted, as they watched how their hero advanced towards them. Okay. I accept your terms, Broly thought as he threw Zenikichi against the wall as if it were a garbage bag and waited for Medaka's attack. Which she did with less pressure since Zenikichi wasn't Broly's hostage. But when she arrived near Broly, she was prepared to hit him with all the offensive skills she had been able to copy so far. However, it was useless. Fwa! Broly suddenly appeared several meters behind his back, as if they had just had a stereotyped samurai duel where a single quick cut ended the duel, being one of the 2 mortally cut without realizing it until a few seconds later. And in this case Medaka only managed to hit the air, and as if it were an irony, the air also hit her, under her. Skirt? Aw! My panties. Impossible. Why do I have a skirt now? I was wearing blue jeans until a moment ago. Medaka shouted without having time to be ashamed for striped and dressed in time record and to see how her panties were being held by Broly in hands. The situation was absurd, hopeless, and shameful. However, she couldn't lose another second. Although Zenikichi blushed excessively despite being embedded in the wall. Ha ha ha. Sometimes you have to do some fan service for the mostly male public, said Broly, waving Medaka's panties as if they were a top, like Lord Kazuma of Nosoba. Bomb. Medaka, due to the fury she felt by Broly perv actions, reached Broly once more at a speed faster than before, but, as before, Broly managed to evade the attack without a problem and put himself in a very favorable position for a counterattack. Flap. Flap. Broly immobilized Medaka, but grabbed her by the breasts to everyone's amazement. Especially Zenikichi. Damn monkey, what are you doing to my Medaka? I haven't even been able to, Zenikichi shouted and thought with great fury and envy. Oh no, this monster is a pervert. He has smeared the princess. Will I be his double, his next prey? Shiranui thought with fear. She had been glued to Broly more than necessary, and after seeing these last actions she began to think that Broly had very dark and perverted intentions towards her too. Damn, perverted. Medaka said as she tried to break free of Broly's grip without success. It's not what it seems. I'm just grabbing the biggest and most protruding part of your body, it's the most logical thing. Right? Broly said indignantly. They were doubting his faultless reputation, although as a reader of this manga he was always curious to squeeze those giant breasts, take her young man. Broly holding her breasts threw her towards Zenikichi, who was trying with all her strength to get up despite his wounds to save her girl. Plum. Aha. Oh. Zenikichi, stop. Oh. Shouted a two-flushed Medaka in a very erotic and suggestive way, since she had landed over Zenikichi a very convenient way. A way in which Zenikichi's head got stuck inside her skirt, and he was trying to break through her skirt without panties to breathe, without finding any exit, only small entrance. Nice catch, Zenikichi. You will thank me later, for now stay stuck to each other as Shiranui is on my shoulder, and enjoy, Broly said, who felt generous and decided to give a boost in the relationship between Medaka and Zenikichi, skipping several phases. Both were very stupid for these things and Broly had volunteered without consent as a marriage counselor in this relationship. Ayahewawahaha. This is so indecent. The princess and Zenikichi doing that and that. Shiranui thought. She wanted to take her eyes off that erotic image, but was unable to do so. The moans prevented her. Hey perverted scion, are you trying to turn this fighting manga into a hentai one? Najimi said as she watched the shameless behavior of her favorite anomaly and the lifeless body of Kamagawa, who would revive shortly after with her all fiction. You are cruel, Najimi. Nobody had called me perverted after I was reincarnated in this perfect body, and certainly not so many times, said Broly, looking away from Medaka and Zenikichi to focus on another visual spectacle like Najimi. I am surprised that you haven't grabbed these teenagers and fled with them. Do you really think you can beat me after seeing what I have done with Ihiko and those kids? I can't know until I try, and on the other hand, I don't understand why you ask something you already know. We came to Shiranui village to retrieve Hondome Shiranui. It's obvious Medaka and Zenikichi won't leave without her, and I can't leave without them. I guess that is one of the reasons why you have taken Shiranui hostage from the beginning with the poor excuse of the Lolis in the manga. Right? Najimi said with conviction, despite the great danger he felt when he was near Broly. And while Shiranui felt guilty about the situation her friends were experiencing because of her fault, Broly smiled evilly again, as if he were a villain from the 007 movies of which Bond have seen and appreciated his great plan. Ha 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 ha. You got me. In addition, Ihiko wanted this little girl as her new body while you want your friend back. Therefore, would be easier for me to prevent the possession of Ikiko if she was close to me and all of you wouldn't make too powerful and wide attacks against me, although this wasn't something that worried me too much. But Najimi didn't wait for Broly to finish his speech. She launched himself at Broly and began to use all the skills she had at his disposal at an unprecedented speed. Parasite Seeing, 100 Gauntlets, Alibi Block, Deadlock, Life Zero, Standing Ovation, Mirror Juvenile, 5 Focus, Door to Door, Give Up Down, Count Up, Sword Looks, Shadow Out, Born to Beat, Get Target, Twin Runner, Dynamite Smile, Ad Hoc Attack, Leg Walker, Trick Sword, Remote Light, Life Scars, Dead or I Love You, Limited Foot, Head Edge, Ghost Cutter, Sword Song, Atomic Number, Full Guard, Hard Break Shot, Ghost Blade, Hard Full Count, Critical Kit, Rapier Dystopia, Lost Blade, Not Selection, Wait Restaurant, Meta Junction, Red Ice Cream, Saint Up, Amateur Armor, Most Love, A Lot of Hand, No Motion, Hi-Fi Speed, Sword Deal, Changing Weapon, Kiss and Cry, Battle Check, full sword, master's taboo, anti-creator soul, child control, heat shock, prison, shoulder sword, must cut, strange stone, tutorial, double blade, black bled, craft speech, platiform, sample fumble, frog blog, tricolor, hyper dash wit, ignorance hilt, high blade revolver, X-sense, death throw, pass. Shield, go bad logic, natural protection, bad bye, death month, claymore, rolling desire, ideally justice, recovery chorus, lightning blade, air jigsaw, steel wood, water jet month, kill log, blind thruster, making space debris, receiver, rental ticket, cut test, sword man, relation break, parallel step, dark sizing, reasonable handy, sentimental motivation, one's necro, two-way one hand, sharp glide, value lives, genocide rule, my sword, sword rain, chopping Viking, meaning network, bat. Only championship, turnover, very best flash, near re-death, prize goal, Damocles sword, beginner's hard luck, double flower, very short range, like love law, reverse cover, weight control, pinhole shot, 1,000 legs, hue match point, fake hand, plot fight, hurdle excel, running back, I fall down, just meet, non-stop house, 180 defense, wall poster, accountability, kill me blow, crash pain, spin offset, physical defrag, I code, science defense, omit heart, 3 force, hitting song, cheer. Fighters, critical 5, damage harness, monitor flag checker, lockdown, add balloon attack, noble, trust battle, patch test, deep rope, no look shot, winder, death swimming, peek out fool, heart control, running system, no risk, no return, high touch, high end, pyramid knuckle, sailor same, before morning, hit maker, bashing passion, short, interval, illegal, aim core, slice knuckle, hand shake truce, miss anger stand, CU damage, mad sensor, alternate regulation, service ace, dressing. Damage, best bout, my inflation, dancing escape, disc berry code, route selection, missile to pause, triple necrotic, stoic pro, condition bon, satellite camp, I can cancel, doctor against, rush hour, silent ninja, perspective revenger, credit damage, usable, counter snipe, heel and toe, future practice, suicide action, Pangea crusher, iron maiden race, mistaker, style keep out, hulip, traffic serious, invisible lamp, morphing ghost, clever headbutt, stand distant blow, mosquito gate. Exciting memory, oranizer, receive dockings, miracle reflection, simple decide, reject loser, exhibition match, water body slam, bolt leg, window shocking, heaven is not heaven, flower bad, dark elbow, sabotage beam, spring grocery, noisy summer beetle, lonely autumn, winter generalist, timeout, genome hospital, ground sound, nitrogen breath, sensational hair, hard luck store, dry sauna, gravit, grip chaos, maniac curtain, emotional turning, shadow step, Cinderella syndrome, missed sister. Painter contest, wallpaper, alcohol sand, free for whole, monster network, muscle collection, magnet streamer, golden cloud, silver opinion, emergence copper, death to sky, sky true, sun sloshing, pollardom shift, mother Mars ship, 9 Pluto, meteor neck, my sea chip, swamp girl, reverse, emperor stone, hang up jewel, Ouroboros connect, angle of opera, act death sin, skin forest, average crying night, treasure tasting, key world, hyperstring theory, north breath, drink range, overreaction. Battle smell, deep sink, neutrino compliance, stereogram, deathtrian deck, reading magic, animal user, mirror effect, strong story, delicate delete, my speed, active talk, leopard eye, readability, most impact, tech type, nearby see-through, pendulum heart, easy chorus, rainbow lamp, play smoke, number foot, prime foot, hand ring berserker, death voice navigation, selfish requester, fantasy illusion, wise man collection, magma stone, vinyl house survivor, big name dreamer, choke board, secret. Research, window gaze, blood bus stop, turning point, slow line, neck ring hold, Gemini impression, unfixed future, magical life, boneless farm, I'm crime, ocean deja vu, different talent, super whisper, pray have hope, lovely hate, tracking, limit over, dream ghost, candle service, paper driver, body blast, cyclotron loy, friendly neighbor green, cross Fraulein, 7 doubt, name Kate the machine gun, terrible triple, past promise, leading light, because problem, general propaganda. Very hungry, crystal edge, death smile, excuse love, barter butterfly, own goal, old cold whip, qualia quality, humankind error, placebo process, arrow blow, trust best, life game pressure, cold chain, gate out, about dark, impossible repeater, homesick house, heart disk crush, zombie hostability, death tier friend, resistance age, killer be quiet, dislike, merely insomnia, propagation, hit man's identity, Niche leading, felling mixer, lonely wedding party, antique, custom 9, out of. Simulation, sense of wonderful, principal capriccio, monkey walk, lunatic manner, nothing sisters, witches animal forces, 6 to 1, mind broken, Pygmalion, midnight neurosis, suspect neuron, modern phobia, nonsense dictionary, in no chest, building consensus block, stakeholder, ultimate narcissism, one of them, heart lung, shining, dry child, anti-success, CKing time, paranoid, runaway 3-6, angry umbrella, self-protector, focus anxiety, peekaboo, wonderful frog make little. Spell checker, sorry destroy, Pytang blood, rabid fox, closed clean room, morphing blame, this cool beauty, don't you trust me, heart symbol, low pride speech, set years freestyle, hystericord, you may be, strike beast, grotesque claw set, monster benefit, cannot be cat ear, giraffe neck, I, tongue crawly, dry and sheller, fighting fong, infinity heart, eat sweet, ladies and gentlemen, poison flame, sinking manipulator, hand leg walker, cryptobiosister, planaria, boy meets. Feather complex, insect feather, body face, crab scissors, interhorn, meat tail, Torino scale eyeball, hazard lamp, bubbly bitty life, newcomer, chameleon of folklore, watchdog food timer, luck dislike me, powder piece, forever fragrance, caterpillar waste, wild diet, Quinn sentence, diamond eyes, ivy love, highly screw trouble, duty la soul family, sticky line, funeral synchronicity, fishing meatball, hungry dress, hell's careless, separate parade, acid panic, Brocken phenomenon, medical blood. Lost omphalos, meat liquid, me zebra bull eye, double standard, must juice, exciting one-side game, oboe, star blood, rehabilitate, problematica stream, looking shot, separate efficiency, mantis core, fat marker, chicken crow, inside hormone, jelly bone, doping mole, spiral needle, skin needle, octopus dinner, big mouth, joint puzzle, handy territory, rear breath, small smart scrap, immovable attacker, under root, aqua breath, fur coat health, metamor stare, knocking old bridge, / nihilism. Calorie off base, romance great, designer's drug, butterfly pass, turtle drill wheels, swim ink, battle lunger, swallow drunker, smash teacher, caterpillar root, family sample, fourth parasite, guide sensor, talk fire, rumor cocoon, lunch mate, mechanical life, normalize, brain break, memory note, spec over, tired play, manual memory, humor contrast, worst dream is, infinity quest, start play, friendly world, welcome hell, auto fumble, time bunny, my alternative, circus and circus, full name. Notorious, full name mysterious, cool from zero cool, burst bust, husky voice dimension, archery picking, Fafotskis, know-how vacuum, another announce, lost password, boiled eye, eternal life, potential hit, next honest, area free, listen by chance, chirality test, zero sum real, beautiful last scene, promotion wars, left legs, sequence catastrophe, last murder, most large holder, dark hole, stage advantage, second life in jail, isolate average space, free climbing, intelligent. Start, initialize history, illegal alchemy, weak pointless, present for you, feel retaker, death's moment, every time slip everyday dream, metastasis from head to tail, 800 true, rob curtain, king mapping, success succeed, undead genius, turning character, marching bad, murder mathematic, baby planet, step by step, I banish, have a break breath, innocent remodel, death meeting, past intervention, exception please, dime penalty, cold game, escape goat, dying message, Aeroguro mirage. Grab empty, occupercent, deep pocket, stronghold in mystery, god, surprise army, shadow influence, defense layer, transport plan, complete jungle, dark meister, sleeping shell, rule make, income support, drawing off course, sitting winner, portable soul, hesitate. Palace, repeater kitsch, cross utopia, shining backlight enemy, reset question, last final operation, manpower, marionette exercise, everything lost, skillful, unskilled, gunsmith's take, first class gunman, moving shot, dodge, guilty stream, selfish umpire, clinical pass, professional hibbit, world globe tour, trigger piece, final sixth sense, body shell, living through, dying through, water palette, robbing bird, freshing aerial, iron strawberry jam, one side horizon, crash palette. Soft creature, electric hit, eccentric talk, sequence sensor, untouchable machine gun, curving bowler, colorful metal, flying ball, gun chase, end paper, heavy baby song, regulation control, upper shooting game, fancy gorgeous, growing animal, sound artist, pretty scope, tragic report, holding my daughter, rescue hand, gun visible color, ill match barrel, front fire, safety tube, extreme corner, pistol treatment, parallel angle, speed map, fiction powder, 1-2 bird, attack line, risky. Security, triple rifle, stylish glory, lighting beam, rolling idle, automatic angel, slowly gun action, service counter, cold thrilling, reserve management, mathematic situation, hawk icefall, gunfight, high risk unicorn, zero mark, monthly attack, gunman's cut, try and try, innocent pistol, rifling lighter, sniper's footprint, mouth, two-line chaos, love call trigger, slapstick battle, peaceful happy, hot line over, pistol closet, nice ball, amazing amateur, thank you very burst, cannon I can. Needs paper, collateral slot, bitter miserable, glamorous odds, brown flame, dessert vichyssoise, defending chance, hammer sherbet, coin laundry, sewing delicacy, surprise pocket, golden file, bad ball, headache girl, dummy annex frog bath, sandwich thin dream, about snooker, heart question, empty cicada, chiffon needle, Torino scale, hurricane arrow, water spider, frontier offside, eat ball ration, mask sample, last rod, shocking corduroy, strange wood, recycle paper, spiky. Spicy, omit aspid, roaring aventia, inner link, cyclone chain tie-up, dog song, surface poison, autumn whistle, butterfly spy, scat incident, miscat polaris, floor stroop, pattern warmer, silent steering, jigsaw memory, knapsack kite, near shield, perfect house, hometown steel, friendship margin, speedy pain, appetizer party, hopeful letter case, revenge appeal, get 2 license, chairman junior, warning anthology, not guilty, belly buddy body, hide regular, pursues lovely, careless scythe, 0. Base condenser, gloomy garter toss, enemy seed, heartbreak sea sense, fuzzy justice parade rear, egotistic key life, humor step, disappear desire, best 9, revelator, your ecstasy, counter crime, Veraguda, fresh nostalgia, Antinok root, angry stability, missile pheromone, visual war, give down, recovery mints, pretty coacher's rule, family report, dusty sign, deaths in full house, skeleton 3 card, animal whisper, next inflation, ultra fair ball, charismile, nice guy pavilion, liquor. Fashion, rhetoric parasol, killer attack, no side throw, freaks, happy end, angel style. This is too long. Perhaps you think that all readers are going to take the trouble to read all this every time you showcase your skills. Said a Broly totally unharmed, stopping the almost endless display of Najimi's skills. Palm. Najimi was hit hard by that casual punch of Broly, causing serious bruises that made her not able to get up from the ground, but the real damage was emotional. Damn, the distance between him and me is bigger than what I had with Ahiko. This is what I was most afraid of, he hasn't won because of an incompatibility between their abilities, he is really powerful against anyone. That's why I hate shonen characters. What kind of skill have you used to avoid my attacks and multiple abilities, especially Kamigawa's Book of End? Asked Najimi, who was very curious to know how possibly a single skill has been able to counteract more than 700 in such an absolute way. Oh, it's true, I still hadn't explained my ability. Do this in a battle shonen is something unheard of. A long explanation of each skill must always be made, which mostly serves to explain it to the lector and to reveal the weak point of the skill to the enemy, something fucking stupid in my opinion. Let's say that within my domain, as long as you are weaker than me considering the Dragon Ball power banner, I can eliminate the effect of each cause, and I've been using that skill since before I came HRE, so I've always been controlling your actions, and their effect, Broly said, being ultra expressive and putting graphic examples as if it were a shonen manga. It is a very problematic skill considering that in this manga everything revolves around skills and there are no energetic or physical forces. But that doesn't explain why, despite that the bookmaker of Kamigawa hasn't been successful, we can't see the effects of the skill in you, Najimi said, pointing to his white hair. Ah, that. It was an illusion that I managed to create based on the abilities of my Aizen's Kyoka Suigetsu, the notions of Naruto and Dragon Ball's standard illusions, and my Jugen's innate ability. With this I made you all believe that your skills were effective, not only Kamigawa's bookmaker. I am not able to manifest my Zanpakuto, but that doesn't prevent me from understanding how the other works, Broly said, changing the colors of his hair and the ones of Najimi and Shiranui intermittently in such a fast way that could provoke an epileptic seizure to any person passing through the vicinity. I see, you've been playing with us all this time, what a nasty villain, Najimi said with cold sweat all over her body. Broly seemed to have everything under control from the beginning. Thank you for the praise, I am honored by those words coming from villain of the Flask Plan saga. Ho ho ho, Broly replied as if he were a rich and pretentious lady that had been flattered. Najimi, who saw the situation worse with each second. This was a terrible and barely seamless skill that nullified the attacks in an even more terrible way than Ahiko's, but from what he had explained there was a way to get rid of its effects. And it's leaving his domain. I see, within your domain you are invincible, but oh you. What? Najimi shouted, terrified and stunned in equal parts. She had tried to run with all her strength with her superior superhuman physical abilities that had no relation to any skill. With this she wanted to grab the other three and move away from Broly's domain until she found a way to counter him using her most powerful skills. However, she was still in the same position. No matter how many steps she took, it was as if she was running on a sliding belt that spun at the same speed as her. Another illusion? Or... let me tell you 3 secrets. 1. From the beginning I never needed little Shiranui to keep you here. 2. Not only can I deny the effect of abilities, I can deny the effect of anything much weaker than me, including your moving effect of your running cause. 3. My domain is so huge that it even encompasses almost a 1/4 of this universe. No matter where you run with these slender legs, you won't advance a single millimeter, Najimi. You could escape with your alibi block or meta-teleportation skill or another of your many absurd abilities, but you can't use them inside my domain. Sorry for being so cautious. I know that with this the hunt stops being exciting, but you have very strange and unpredictable abilities. I can't take risks. But regardless of that, do you already understand your situation? Broly said, showing his checkmate. An extremely bitter and devastating checkmate for Najimi. Until now she had lost thousands of times against Ahiko, however, she always had the option of escaping or avoiding that monster, but now she couldn't even do that. That was frightening. It was unfair. She and nobody could do anything. Well, since I have explained everything and I have shown that there is no escape. Have you already given up, and have finished doing dirty things? Broly said sarcastically as he separated Medaka from Zenikichi, who was beginning to run out of air due to various circumstances, and Medaka was in a similar situation, but with a more relaxed and satisfied expression. But even though everything was lost, Najimi, the only one who was still more or less standing, stepped forward without hesitation. Not yet. I won't sit idly while you take us all. While I still have some life left, won't let you put your finger on them. A very moving phrase. I see that sacrificing you for them wasn't something impulsive as seen in the manga. You really are a strange god. You are like a human who sacrifices himself so that 3 ants can live. But I think there has been a misunderstanding. I never said it would take you all. I just meant you and Ahiko, Broly said, somewhat confused as he pointed at Najimi. Najimi and Shiranui shouted in shock, also Medaka and Zenikichi, who were beginning to regain consciousness, and Kamagawa, who had stopped playing dead. Do you only want me? I can understand it, but... you really have no interest in the perfect protagonist or in the other secondary characters? Najimi asked to clarify their doubts and to make sure that nothing will happen to them. Well... I can't deny that the giant tits Marie Sue's, the end, skill is quite tempting, as well Hanton Shiranui's skill to create skills, but... they aren't inside my selection criteria, although their ability would deserve it. But it's not necessary. I have someone in mind capable of doing the same as Medaka. Besides, I wouldn't want to take away Zenkichi away from his girl. It took a long time and a lot of effort for him to get out of the friend zone. Respect. Although the idiot rejected her unnecessarily twice for stupid reasons, only to continue creating romantic tension until the final chapter, Broly said, not too happy with his own decisions, or those of Zenikichi. What? I do that? Zenikichi thought, disappointed with his impending furious self. Is Zenikichi going to reject me again? Medaka thought with an almost broken heart. Hearing Broly's words, Najimi felt some relief but asked once again to make sure she was right. So if I go with you, do you promise not to do anything to the others? Upon hearing Najimi's proposal, the shonen spirit of friendship possessed Medaka. Najimi, you can't be serious. We never let yo. But she couldn't finish her sentence. No matter how much she moved her lips she made no sound, since Broly had eliminated the voice effect of the speak cuz in Medaka, Zenikichi and Handong, who began to protest strongly when the decision had already been taken. You have my word, although it's not like there's a notary nearby to attest it. Come on, don't look at me with that face. I'm not an ISIS terrorist who kidnaps Shonen Jump celebrities to film their decapitations on YouTube. On the contrary, they will win with this job offer, Broly said, showing a rather kinder face and approach, even though he wanted to take Najimi with him by force and coercion after all. Very kind of you. And what am I supposed to win? Najimi asked sarcastically. How about the great opportunity to leave this cage in which all your past, present and future has been chosen beforehand by a middle-aged Japanese who wants to pay his bills. A cage in which despite your great powers you are always destined to lose against a protagonist due to the script's demands. A cage of which you know its existence, but you are unable to escape from it. I am offering you to escape from this cage and go beyond the world where your own creator drew you, transcend this cage and reach the origin of the true omniverse and overcome the power you currently have. Tell me Najimi is not a good offer. Broly said as if he were a politician or religious leader who with a lot of demagogy convinced the masses to follow him. So you offer me to leave this cage where my authors hold me and control my destiny, to enter your cage where you will control my destiny? Najimi replied sarcastically once more, although she agreed with what Broly had said after all. She was just changing one prison for another. Broly showed a stinging smile and getting very serious and deep expressed his thoughts. Well, I understand your concern. But don't we all live inside a cage? We are all born and live with multiple prisons that limit us at all levels. Whether it is the same reality in which you are confined and almost no one can perceive or escape, the same space and time that limits the movement and way of perceive the physical world, a planet from which it is only possible escape with sufficient technological development resulting from thousands of years of sacrifice and research, the borders and laws of a state that restrict your freedom to force you to enroll in a collective for which you must work and abide by the rules you haven't chosen or recognized under threat of jail or expropriation. Even your own body, whose DNA and biology limits and predetermines much of your capabilities, needs and behavior that we will have throughout life, our own mind that is only able to think about things that our senses and compression can perceive, the social norms that limit our behavior about what is good and evil, even our own moral codes and conduct that largely prevent us from doing what is necessary and/or convenient from what we perceive as correct. Always, for everyone and everything, and even for me there will always be cages in an irremediable way. However, some like me have the gift, ability, and/or luck to be able to escape from some of those cages, even from the highest level cage in which you has been placed and create your own cage with the perfect measures for your needs, decorate it to your liking, have absolute control over it and everything you want. A cage that will rise above all others. And I am giving you a place in the best cage of the Omniverse. Isn't my cage better than this one? Besides, I saved your life beating Ihiko, you owe me a favor, Broly said, referring to the world of Medaka Box. Perhaps. Although I have no other alternative. Right? Najimi said with sarcasm another time but something more convinced and attracted by Broly's words. Despite the inconvenience that could entail, she was seeing before her an opportunity to find new aspirations and experiences. Something that always motivates an almost almighty being who has got bored of the world and its people. Medaka and Zenikichi, who were unable to speak, disagreed with the decision Najimi was about to make, but then. Do you allow me to participate in this conversation? Said Kamagawa, who stopped playing dead and re-entered the scene. Kamagawa. Whispered Najimi, who didn't know what the madman of the manga intended. Without his powers it was very dangerous to contradict Broly. Of course, what do you have to say? Broly said with a confident smile, as if he already knew what he would say. If you don't mind, could I go with you too? Kamagawa asked with his usual wax doll smiling face. Well, your speech has been quite convincing and I'm quite curious to know other worlds of the Shonen Jump. In addition, soon I will have to graduate and I don't fucking know what to do with my future and this seems like a good, relaxed and fun job. Am I wrong? Kamagawa said, showing his pessimism for the future and optimism when he saw a quite attractive solution for his possibilities. And did you forget to mention that you want to go with the girl you love by chance? Broly asked, who was quite aware of Kamagawa's feelings for Najimi, although understanding that it happens through Kamagawa's head is quite complicated. Broly's words made Kamagawa blush with embarrassment. Broly had exposed his temptations very suddenly, so the young Minus approached to Broly and Najimi trying not to have eye contact with her, while she looked at him in a pretty teasing way. By the way. I also take this psycho-perverted called Professor Fukuru Tsurabami. He is not as extraordinary as you or Ihiko, but he is a pretty intelligent and capable character, and the creator of the styles. He will be a great acquisition for my scientific team. Orochimaru, Kars and Mayuri will be quite happy, Broly said, taking out of his formless realm the immobilized body of the professor, also Medaka's uncle. Medaka reacted strongly upon see how his uncle was held from his neck by Broly's as if he were a chicken about to be plucked. Before you protest, although now you cannot. I wouldn't feel any pity for this guy. I leave the full manga. With this you can see what will be or could have been your existence if it weren't for my intervention, and you will see what this guy tried to do. Spoiler, sexually abuse Hondome and destroy the planet, Broly said as he handed them the volumes of Medaka Box. Oh, and by the way, Zenikichi, remember. Before you doubt the most buxom. You know who I mean. Bye. Broly said, throwing Shiranui like a ball into the arms of a blushing Zenikichi. Goodbye Madaka and Zenikichi, I hope we can meet again one day, Najimi said casually. Goodbye guys, you can do the perverted things you were doing before, Kamagawa said somewhat jealous. And with those words Broly disappeared with Najimi and Kamagawa to another dimension, and after a few seconds in which Madaka, Zenikichi and Shiranui recovered their speech of the constant shocks chained one after another. Shiranui, are you alright? Said Zenikichi, who was still holding Shiranui as if she were a baby. Zenikichi, don't talk to me with the same mouth you just did that with. Shiranui said, very flushed and embarrassed by the image that still couldn't be taken out of her head. Zenikichi, after this you won't reject me again, right? After what you did to me I won't be able to marry someone who is not you, said Madaka, very flushed, showing all the innocence and shame she had in herself in a very cliché way. This is beyond me now, Zenikichi thought. He didn't know whether to laugh, cry, rejoice or worry. Desire Realm. After a subtle process of recruitment in the formless realm. Broly, Najimi, Kamagawa, Ihiko, and Professor Fukaru appeared in Broly's spacecraft floating in the vastness of space. Hello Broly-sama, are these our new partners? Orochimaru said with lust, he was the most interested in knowing the new life forms of other realities. That's right. What if we have a friendly talk to strengthen ties between everyone and answer some of your questions? Broly said, creating a giant table with snacks. Desire Realm. Broly's deluxe space shift. Main hall. In the gigantic meeting room of the immense and luxurious spaceship that floated in the immensity of the Desire Realm. A dimension where there were only Omega Dragon Balls and this spacecraft and its inhabitants exist. Dozens of people began to gradually reach that gigantic room where there was a huge elongated table with thousands of dishes prepared by Broly, which presided over the table, helping everyone to join that surprise meeting. In addition to Najimi, Kamagawa, Ihiko, Professor Fukaru Tsurabami and Orochimaru who arrived first, many others began to arrive and sit down, some in an organized way, others in a disorderly way, some interested in knowing the topics of this meeting, others only interested in food, and others came forced. From the Dragon Ball universe Zuno, Frost, Good Bu, Evil Bu, who had devoured Moro on Broly's orders, to make him stronger and because he didn't appreciate Moro too much, and even Hit who had taken a small vacation to attend the event. From JoJo's universe were Dio and his faithful lackey Vanilla Ice. Also Wamo, Santana and Acidicai who had been resurrected by Broly at the request of Kars, and Orochimaru to help him in his research. From Naruto's universe were Kagaya, Black Zetsu, still in his mother clothes, Hagoromo and Hamura who followed his mother with a complicated expression. There was also Madara, who watched the new members with interest, and several meters from them Obito and Rin, who didn't feel very comfortable beside them, especially Madara. From Shaman King's universe was only Mantamune, who had come to represent Hao in this meeting, because he was already very busy as the king of the earth, and hated being surrounded by so many people. And from the Bleach universe were Aizen and Uwak accompanied by some of their former Wandenrake lackeys such as Lil Baro, Askin Nak Luvar, Gerard Valkyrie, Robert Acutron or Gremy Thumos, or the Espada like Coyote Stark, Baragon Luzenbairn, Zamari Ruros, Ulquiorra Cypher, Sailaporo Grands, who were also resurrected by Broly for the enjoyment of Aizen and Uwak. And apart from those two Bleach factions too. I hope this sudden and unexpected interruption of my work is for something important. And, for the content on this table it will surely be something very transcendental and brief. Said Mayuri Kuratsuchi, the captain of the 12th Division in the Godiai 13 and second president of the Shinigami Research Institute with sarcasm. That's right, he is the mad scientist Mayuri which Broly seduced with his infinite material, intellectual, ethereal resources, knowledge of other realities, and in a somewhat tricky way Broly make him see that this was the opportunity to overcome Urahara in everything. Although our esteemed MC also gives some of those resources and knowledge to Urahara to make sure that the competition never ends at all. Then Broly got up somewhat aggrieved, as if he had heard that an obvious and empirical obviousness had been questioned with a stupid or religious bullshit. Example, the earth is flat, of course it's something important. It's about to take place an endearing and desired event that occurs once a year in successful corporations like ours. A meeting where everyone meets to talk, eat, drink and strengthen ties, and everyone is looking forward that their handsome, venerable, fabulous, intelligent and impressive boss, which is me. And narcissistic too, thought all those who hadn't been convinced enough. Give a speech about the good results that have been obtained in that economic cycle, how good our teamwork has been, how much we have learned and have had a good time, and state the new purposes and actions to be taken. In my previous life they were called company dinners. It's something very important, as you can see, everyone wants to go to one of them. I don't lie. Broly said, moving his eyes from side to side with his hesitant voice, because it was hard even for him to say that obvious lie. Well, if it's just that, I'm going back to the lab. I'm in the middle of something interesting, Mayuri said, withdrawing from the meeting. When suddenly... Perfect, if that disgusting mummy doesn't want to be here, better for everyone, Sales said with much resentment towards Mayuri. After all, he condemned him to a life worse than the death. What did you say, perfect being, that lost against me? Do you want another beating? Mayuri said, unsheathing his Zanpakuto in a hostile way. And to avoid a fight between the two, someone intervened. Come on, Mayuri. I know that so many new things are fascinating you and you want to overcome that Urahara that you always complain about, but we are working in a room with stop time and we have multiple bodies, and I know that you are working with several of them right now. Why don't you relax a little with us with this body? Orochimaru said to his lab partner, who noticed that he needed some rest, even if it was only with one of his bodies. And Mayuri replied as if he were a child who has just been seen eating cookies in secret, I know, Orochimaru, but I like to be 100% concentrated when... But he couldn't finish the sentence since suddenly all the exits and teletransportation skill that Broly had given him disappeared. I'm sorry, in Broly's company dinner's absence is not optional. Except for how, if he goes away for a long time, souls don't reach him. I'll have to solve it later when I have time. Whatever is. Now you will all sit down, you will eat, you will drink, you will love what you will eat and drink because I have been cooking for hours to make sure everything is perfect, you will talk, laugh, make friends, or maybe something else. And finally you will listen to what I have to say, you will applaud enthusiastically, and because I am a modern and kind boss I will listen to your doubts. Okay? Broly said with energy and authority, tapping the table with his tail. Okay. They all responded at once, some with more enthusiasm than others. Hours later. The dinner continued with joy and normality. Well, normality, exactly not. Najimi, Ihiko, and Kamagawa and Professor Fukurutsurabami, because they were new ones, they presented themselves in a shameful way, as is usually done at company dinners, and in a few seconds Kamagawa was already bothering some of the shonen characters he knew from the magazine as Good Buu, who kept eating everything he saw near him. And Ihiko was trying to fight crazy people for combat like Madara, Evil Buu, and Wamu. Meanwhile Najimi joined the group of Aizen, Iwak, Kagaya and Dio, who were talking quietly about world domination plans and other topics of conversation of megalomaniac villains. Although she was talking with other groups as well, like the mad scientists group of Orochimaru, Kars, Mayuri, Sale, and the Professor Fukurutsurabami, that had been integrated perfectly into the group, who only talked about the progress of their research, and sometimes Kars also talked about world domination, or the quiet group of Obito and Rin, which kept stroking the gentle Mantamune. Group that Broly was talking to right now. Ha 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 ha. I am glad that everything goes well between you and that you liked the planet of my universe that I advised you for the honeymoon. A few years ago I went to spend my holidays in that place with a friend. Ha 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 ha. Did you like the patatas bravas from that place? Thanks to me they are on the menu of all restaurants of all that solar system, said Broly, that was interested in the love life of the only official couple that exists in his dimension. That place is perfect, Obito and I really enjoy it, although none of us ever imagined that we would travel to another reality for our honeymoon. Ha ha ha, Rin replied gratefully as she looked at Obito lovingly, and continued to stroke Mantamune, that meowed happily. I'm glad to hear it. By the way, what do you want to do after enjoying the cloying phase of marriage? If at any time you feel like doing something, Orochimaru would be happy to have a medical ninja as capable as you in the research team, Broly said, looking for the productivity of his universe, trying to mask it with some kind of favor. But Obito quickly came to her aid to reject that job offer. Thank you for the offer, but we still have a lot to do and plan for the future, so for now I don't think she can be incorporated in the research group. Yes, exactly, we have a lot to do for now. Rin replied, agreeing with Obito. As if I were going to let Rin be surrounded by those weirdos with high ranges of psychopathy, Obito thought with concern as he looked at the group of crazy scientists formed by Orochimaru, Kars, Mayuri, and the others, that were laughing like crazy people who gave life to a corpse. No way. I'm not going to join the group of those crazy people. In the end it would end up being another experiment in that laboratory, Rin thought, supporting Obito's concern, like a well-synchronized married couple. I see, nothing happens then. Enjoy this precious moment as much as you want. After all, almost everything that had to be done for this phase is about to end, said Broly, who was invaded by his romantic vein and became permissive with both of them. And upon hearing that last sentence, Najimi, who was hanging around the different groups to find out everything she could, a big question arose in her mind. When you said, almost everything, you mean scientific research, time limit of your plan. Or maybe you still have worlds to explore. He, let's say you've been right in everything, being concrete I still have 3 universes to visit, Broly replied casually as he eats stone-cooked T-bone steaks with a wide smile. Oh. Najmi murmured with surprise, curiosity, disappointment and desire to know more. Now that the subject of the remaining worlds has come up. Broly-sama. Aizen said, interrupting the conversation, since it had been a long time, days even, wanting to ask an important question to his beloved leader. Tell me Aizen, what about the remaining worlds? Broly asked kindly as he finished eating his steaks. Upon hearing Broly Aizen's response, he responded by trying to find the right words, well, how to say it. We have been talking to each other and we understand and agree with the next world and the future investment world, but... Do you only understand and agree? It is by far the best world of all. The crown jewel of all the realities of the Shonen Jump. Broly replied briskly as he continued to quench his almost unlimited stomach. Better than mine? Are you not happy with my more than 1 billion skills? Can you find better things in another world? Najimi said, quite outraged knowing that she or her universe weren't the main course. EJM. Dio exclaimed to resume the conversation, what Aizen means is that the next world is perfect for our banners and the plan, but, the other two. We don't agree at all, Dio said, expressing the opinion of the group of megalomaniac villains and mad scientists who nodded at the same time. We believe that they contribute nothing, and that you have only chosen those worlds for quite stupid reasons. Yawatch said, continuing with the collective's opinion quite delicately, but not being able to avoid being rude. And after Yawatch, the next to express his opinion was Orochimaru, especially when there were so many interesting alternatives. Like for example the reality of Saint Seiya, they have very impressive energetic and conceptual powers that. But he was quickly interrupted and corrected by Broly, I'm sorry, but no. Saint Seiya no. I will not dress in strange armor or depend of items in combat. I want everyone to see my incredible musculature when I'm fighting, and armor would cover my impressive abs. A body as big and perfect as mine would be ridiculous with that kind of armor, said our MC explaining his cosmetic reasons. And although everyone had enough things to object to, they tried to continue with new ideas. Okay, and how about Hokuto no Ken? I know that the powers you can get in that reality are null, but the martial art Hokuto Shinken could be something incredible in your hands, or those of anyone with a power beyond the human one, especially in Taijutsu, Madara said, also contributing with his war and martial opinions to the conversation. Sorry, but also dismissed. I don't like killing people, even less making them explode. Much blood and guts spilled. AJ, disgusting, said Broly, showing his almost incomprehensible kindness and neatness. And how about Siren? There is a great variety of quite incredible powers such as Uchiha's Melchi's Door, Miroku Amaji's Sephiroth, or the ability to travel in the time of Nemesis Q, Dio asked, making special mention of the ability to travel in time. Fuck, it seems you have read all the mangas I let you. No, Siren either. That world doesn't give me anything new. I already have telekinesis, illusions, transformations, and my Hakai is much better than that ridiculous black ball. As for time travel, this resource also exists in my universe and I don't plan to use it. I don't want to create new timelines, it would be problematic, Broly answered as if he were a professor bored of his work. And continuing with the brainstorming, Yawatch made his contribution, and Katekyo Hitman Reborn. You might be able to share knowledge with the you of the others' timelines, and also the Trianai set. Which was quickly interrupted by Broly, I'm sorry, but no. I know how much you like to play with alternative futures, past and present, but that won't work with me. In my universe there are a limited number of alternative timelines, and in those alternative lines I don't even exist. It is another Broly, so it wouldn't help me unless I created new timelines, which I have already said that I don't want to do. And the Trianai set is the same, its rings and pacifiers are external items, and also a defective ones. Why would I want to contribute to my universe with something as flawed as a system that needs to continually sacrifice the strongest people to avoid the world destruction? And how about Bobo? Apart from the techniques and strange beings, his ability to use reality warping is superior even to mine. For this and much more, Bobobo is one of the 20 strongest characters in the manga, said Kamagawa, who joined the conversation because it seemed funny. No way. I don't want my universe to become stupid. Never. 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 Broly said with an exaggerated body expression to emphasize that he strongly disagreed. And how about One Piece? The Akuma no Mi are very interesting and diverse. They may not give you as many skills as Najimi, but you would still get one or two interesting things. And his technology and haki is interesting, said Kagaya, who was reading a volume of the Shonen Jump before giving his opinion. Kagaya, your obsession with fruits that give powers never ceases to amaze me. Well, One Piece was in my sights for a while, but no. I don't want to go to a world that has not yet been finished, and for the end of One Piece there are still about 15 years. So for now no, thanks. Broly responded very bluntly and authoritatively, although he tried to sound friendly. But with your ability to see the future and Avalon's computer, it would be possible for you to see it. Yawatch replied, surprised by his boss's answer, since he had many means to know the end of One Piece instantly. Ei. No spoilers. I want to see how the story unfolds in a normal way, chapter by chapter and week after week from the moment I stopped seeing it due to my death. It's something I want to enjoy with peace once my great crusade ends. Okay. Broly said in a very hostile way. Looking individually at each one to convey the severity of the situation, and the repercussions. Therefore everyone nodded with fear and shame. And after a few seconds in which the atmosphere of the brainstorming was recovered. Okay, and how about the universe of? Asked all at once, trying to propose their favorite reality. Stop. It is of no use to propose other realities. The decision was made years ago. Besides, they are not too bad either. One has an alien universe with quite impressive at the same time absurd technologies, and the other even has a multiverse and strange beings and powers, although I don't know to what extent they are useful for combat, or for something. Besides, you could say that the reason I travel to those worlds now when I could wait for the next era is... It's because it's something personal. And if I didn't do it, I wouldn't be quiet. It's something I must do, the ear alert the better, Broly replied, using his authority as head of a very serious and profound way. Okay, we understand you, but... If this isn't the last world in which you have to recruit someone, why have you made the company dinner now? Wouldn't it be better to wait for you to have the whole team together? Najimi asked, still feeling belittled to know that she wasn't Broly's main course in this omniversal conquest. For many reasons. The first is that the following guests who will join us surely don't enjoy my current level of cooking too much. As for the second, he. Before doing a certain thing, I like to eat well. Broly answered in a very eccentric and intimidating way while almost unconsciously released part of his fighting spirit. Certain thing? What do you mean? Rin asked as she tried to calm Mantamune, who was a little scared of Broly's aura. It's obvious what he mean, girl. When a man puts on that face and release that kind of aura, it can only mean one thing, shouted Ihiko, who was interested in this conversation for the first time. A good fight. Said Ihiko, Madara and Wamuu at the same time, releasing an aura similar to Broly's. It is contagious. Men's, thought Najimi, Kagaya and Rin at the same time with condescension and shame. Exactly. I don't want to despise you, but... None of you have been able to give me a good fight. An exciting fight to show my masculinity and physical power. Most of you are powerful mostly because of your abilities, and that, although argumentatively, is the best resource. Alpha males like me need a somewhat primitive combats from time to time. And that is what I hope to find in this world. An opponent more or less at my height in terms of physical and martial skills. I've been waging that for years. Fuck. I am sorry. I haven't felt that emotion for a long time, Broly answered, trying to calm down again with some candy to not scare Mantamune anymore, who was able to feel the danger better than humans. I'm glad for you, Broly, but there is something I don't understand very well. Why haven't you absorbed all the possible laws of that universe? Doesn't that leave you at a disadvantage for that fight? Hagoromo asked curiously. Until now Broly had always gone with almost all his power to each of the realities he has visited regardless of the power of its users. That indicated that he was someone very cautious. The fact that he will announce that he will fight against someone strong in those disadvantageous conditions was something strange. That. There are various reasons. One of them is due to the way of absorbing the laws of that world I haven't wanted and could assimilate many yet, and the other. Well, let's say I want to do an experiment that might be necessary for the future. Okay guys. I know you have many questions and doubts, but I'm afraid it's time to try the main course. With that you can see for yourself the answer to some of your questions, Broly said expectantly. Then he created a giant television screen in the center of the room, so everyone could see his appearance in the next world. The moment announced at the beginning of the manga had arrived. Our heroes Toriko, Komatsu, Zebra, Sunny and Coco had traveled to the Gorimet world to bring resources to the human world devastated by the spice rain of Midora. The goal was to increase their strength, mainly eating, to solve the mystery behind the blue nitro, the dark chef Joa, the NEO organization and stop their surely sinister plans, which among other things were to destroy the world, something very common in evil organizations. It was a journey full of sacrifice in which many great people like Knocking Master, Jiro, Don Slime, the ex-Universal King and Appetite Demon of Ichiryu, and more others characters who died heroically trying to save the world and the universe of his greatest threat. Acacia and his Appetite Demon Neo. Acacia, that the one that until today was recognized and venerated as the greatest gourmet hunter in history, also known as the gourmet god, the one that discovered the gourmet cells, the first and only person to find the holy and phantasmal ingredient god stopping the great war in the human world and the most powerful human in the history of the planet. The greatest hero in the history and also the adoptive father of the other three most powerful humans Ichiryu, Jiro, and Midora, the husband and combo of the chef goddess Frozy, whose body had been owned by Joa, who was working side by side with the evil Acacia. And although he didn't know it, he was also Toriko's and also Starjin's biological father, who were the adopted children of Ichiryu and Midora respectively, although until a few chapters they hadn't realized that they were twin brothers, a family drama that surpasses Star Wars. And now, along with Neo, the most threatening, dangerous and insatiable appetite demon so far, the one who has devoured entire universes, even supernovae, and the sanity of his Acacia possessor, making him the greatest threat that the Red Universe had ever suffered. A trip where Toriko and his friends managed to consume much of the planetary full-course menu, also known as the Acacia full-course menu. The definitive menu of the Red Universe that allowed to unleash the full potential of the body and the appetite demon that she carries in her cells. Air, that allows to fully utilize the atmosphere, making a simple breath able to heal a person's body from simple cuts to deep wounds and bone damage, and along with these regenerative capabilities, provides a person with the ability to spend many hours without breathing and fully awakens the gourmet cells of the left arm. Pair, that gives ability to interact with the deceased or with people on the verge of death, the ability to see the spirit world and fully awakens the gourmet cells of the right arm. Another, that gives one the ability to comprehend tastes that were previously inedible and reawakens tastes that were forgotten and fully awakens the gourmet cells of the tongue, and much like Pair's ability to allow one to see and enter the back channel as well as the world of souls. News, that enables one to control the speed of their gourmet cell's cellular division to exceed the speed of light, 299,792 km per second or 186,282 miles per second, allowing them to create and manipulate back channel and fully awakens the gourmet cells of the left leg. Earth, that fully awakens the gourmet cells of the right leg that provides so much energy and nutrients that it perfectly counters the exhaustion of generating back channels. News gift. Atom, that gives the ability to see invisible gourmet matter and fully awakens the gourmet cells of the torso and head, excluding the heart, tongue, and brain, which are awakened by Center, Another, and God, respectively. They only needed to devour Center and God, the two dishes with the highest level of capture and the most beneficial and difficult to obtain together with Another. But just at the most crucial moment, God, the most coveted food on the planet, the main course of the planetary full-course menu, the most powerful frog in the world of fiction and the ingredient that in the past could stop a war, had made its appearance. And now this was the dish that had triggered the greatest war of all. This was the greatest world war in the history of that world. And the sides of this war were quite clear. Komatsu, Otaki, and all the other chefs were cooking God from inside its body in a very strange esoteric way, while Acacia/Neo, Joa and the Blue Nitros fought against the team formed by Toriko, Type, Star June, Zebra, Sunny and Coco, while Midora, the strongest man in the world today, was still momentarily sealed by Joa, who used dirty psychological tricks against him, appealing to the great unconditional love Midora felt for her adoptive mother Frozy, Joa's actual body. The fight was tough and full of dangerous, epic and dramatic scenes, but unfortunately Toriko's team was at a clear disadvantage. Acacia and Joa were far superior to them, and that is why they were on the verge of death, and they would have died had it not been for the magical intervention of God and the 8 kings. The most powerful kings animals around the world, Dragon King Diraus, Wolf King, Guinness, Crow King, Emperor Crow, Snake King, Mother Snake, Deer King, Sky Deer, Whale King, Moon, Monkey King, Bambina, Horse King, Heracles, which saw Acacia/Neo as the greatest threat of all. The titanic battle between the strongest monsters on the planet and the Red Universe continued with great highs and lows for both sides, in which Acacia/Neo had to show all its power and was even forced to evolve to fight against all of them. And with that evolution and anger he felt by being threatened and hurt by an almost dead Toriko, he finally achieved his long-awaited goal. Eat a part of God. G.A. And it was at that moment when Bambina, the strongest monkey in this universe, for now, rushed at the speed of light towards Acacia/Neo with obvious murderous intentions, just like the rest of the 8 kings who attacked from all the places Acacia/Neo with powerful long-range energy attacks. Boom! Creating an explosion so powerful that covered almost half of the planet's surface, a planet hundreds of times larger than the planet Earth and denser than a neutron star, a planet that in the case of exploding would ridicule all supernovae that have existed in history, almost on the scale of another Big Bang. An attack that could have destroyed without problems this unusually resistant planet, if it wasn't because he was devoured. 2 figures appeared from the remains of the explosion and its dense smoke. Acacia, which was totally naked and with a completely human appearance, without any apparent mutation due to Neo's gourmet cells. And in front of him a sinister and inhuman anthropomorphic being with a very strange and creepy body. It was like a badly drawn monster that looked like a sinister and devilish black Daruma. His appearance changed a lot since he was in Acacia's body or in the flashbacks, but there was no doubt, it was a Neo. That had managed to physically manifest himself outside Acacia's body thanks to eating God resuscitating his brain. And Neo, who seemed to be totally unharmed just like Acacia, held with his ugly hand less than half of Bambina's mutilated and defeated body, which was held like a loaf of bitten bread. However, Bambina hadn't given up and still being held by Neo, from his mouth launched several energy attacks against the monster that devoured him. Fiu. Fiu. Fui. Fui. Fiu. Shurlup. 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 Energy attacks that were devoured by Neo once again very easily, causing some desperation in the almost death Bambina. However, the rest of the kings didn't stay with legs, fangs and hooves crossed, such as the Horse King Heracles who was ready to launch several pressurized air cannons from his nose. Pressurized air cannons that once casually were able to pierce the planet, with an entrance and exit hole. But... Whoa. Slash. With a powerful energetic shout from Neo he destroyed almost Heracles' body, thus decapitating the immortal horse easily. So, you're Neo, the true form of my appetite. Acacia said with satisfaction, pride, and arrogance as he contemplated the power of the incarnation of his gourmet cells. After a few seconds of stupor, fear, excitement and hope. Pair the blue nitro that conspired with Acacia from the beginning continued with the plan. Center. Make the preparations. Pear shouted to his partner Center to bring the world full-course dish in which he specialized, which is Center. Center, the last ingredient that Acacia needed to achieve perfection. But the 8 legendary kings weren't idiots, they knew that they should kill Neo as soon as possible otherwise the universes, planet and their own race would be decimated. So, the Crow King from the skies used one of his most emblematic skills to stop him. Emperor's Shadow. A skill that creates a small sun on the back of the Crow King casting his shadow on Neo, Acacia, Pear and Center, a shadow with the effect of cancelling the thoughts that those beneath it. And before that imminent threat Neo began shaking his body making his luminescent proteins within his cells emit an overwhelming brightness that could wipe out the sun itself. With that the shadow of the Crow King was completely dissipated. And... Niam. Taking advantage of the flash that had completely blinded the Crow King and everyone nearby, Neo jumped and during that jump he enlarged his head and devoured the left half of the body of the King of the Birds, leaving only his head intact. Jith 3i. And despite having been torn apart, from his peak he shot several energy beams at Neo. Chomp. 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 Which devoured each shot one by one without too much difficulty. He devoured a supernova a few moments ago. It was obvious that this would be easy. And suddenly... Foo! For a moment Neo vanished, because was shallowed by the Snake King. A creature with the diameter of the Wola planet, the longest in the world of Toriko, at a speed several times higher than that of light. Then King Snake gathered its 220,000 kilometers long body, entwining itself into one single place. Mother's Lock. Thus forming a giant snake ball. With this curious and bizarre attack, the Snake King concentrated in one place, Neo, all its intestinal flows to the maximum, intestinal fluids capable of dissolving any type of matter in seconds, for the sole purpose of attacking Neo. And that attack was taking effect. Neo's body, that was able to withstand the intense heat of the supernova created by Dawn's slime, but now it was slowly disintegrating into the stomach of the strongest snake. However, upon saying this, Neo immediately swallowed up all the digestive juices in one gulp. Even the world's most powerful digestive juices were nothing more than a little extra strong carbonated soda to Neo's stomach. And the Snake King's body, which was wrapped in and on itself to the point where it became like a small planet, instantly withered away. Neo had devoured practically all the liquids inside King Snake's body until it was almost totally dehydrated. With its strength gone, its grip released. But despite its poor state, the Snake King didn't falter for even a moment. Thought its own body had become thin and dried up, it hardened its body in order to trap no within itself as it lunged forward. Straight into the stomach whale King Moon. The biggest and possibly the most powerful beast on the earth, a titanic monster capable of creating black holes inside its mouth and stomach. And the Whale King sensed the Snake King's intent. Whoosh! Shluyu-up-you-up-you-pu-pu-pu-pu-pu-pu-pup. And as if it were the biggest spaghetti in history, the Whale King swallowed the Snake King whole along with Neo, then he arched its massive body and sprang up height into the air from the water's surface, exhibiting his colossal belly towards the Dragon King that had already sensed the Whale King's intent. That's why he began charging up every last ounce of its energy in his extra-dimensional laser, as only that would be capable of bringing down the Whale King. In a few seconds, 3 of the 8 most powerful kings, the most legendary beasts on the planet, those who had been at the top of the food pyramid of the universe and who constantly fought among them for more territory, decided to collaborate and even sacrificing their lives to kill Neo. Either by letting himself be devoured, letting himself be disintegrated, or exhausting his entire life in a single attack. They should kill Neo at all costs. That was the threat that Neo meant to the entire universe. If you like this content, don't forget to like and subscribe. See you later, bye bye.